Jake Browning. Wow, did this guy look like the second coming of Joe Burrow or what, man? Just an incredible performance to watch as he lit up the Jaguars defense. This is Sports Guy talking that you guys are watching and listening to. I am Dustin Tran, your host, as I am here today to talk about Jake Browning having a career game against the Jaguars on Monday Night Football. Not only did Jake Browning have a career game, his team ended up beating the Jaguars by the score of 34-31 in overtime. The Bengals are now 6-6 on the season, and their playoff hopes are still alive for now. Before I say anything else, though, I want to present you guys with the topic question. So here it is. How impressed were you about Jake Browning? Honestly, I gotta be very impressed with what he did last night. I did not expect Jake Browning to ball out the way they did on Monday Night Football. When Jake Browning played football this season, I was not impressed with him prior to last night. But when I watched Jake Browning play last night, my mind changed immediately. I thought, holy cow, Jake Browning looks like an NFL quarterback, because you guys got to remember that Jake Browning played in 2 other NFL games this season, and he did not look very good when doing so, because he got to play against the Ravens on Thursday Night Football. He looked like a quarterback that did not belong out there on an NFL field. He sucked against the Baltimore Ravens defense, but hey, maybe it's because the Ravens defense is really good, and they are notorious for making young quarterbacks struggle against their defense. So I will give Jake Browning a pass for sucking against the Baltimore Ravens. Besides, he probably didn't even expect to come into the game. Now, as far as Jake Browning against the Pittsburgh Steelers last week, he struggled against their defense, but I'm going to also give him a pass too, because the Steelers defense, they seem like they're really good. I know that they sucked against the Arizona Cardinals, but hey, the Pittsburgh Steelers always have 1 or 2 games where they play down to their opponent, and they always have 1 or 2 opponents where they force an upset year in and year out. It's the same story with Mike Tomlin year in and year out. But when you talk about what Jake Browning did on Monday Night Football against the Jacksonville Jaguars, you have to be very impressed. He threw some good passes down the field. He was very accurate with his passes. He knew how to make his progressions rather quickly. He knew how to put the ball in playmakers' hands. He looked like their version of Cooper Rush or their version of Nick Foles, whichever backup quarterback you want to insert in as the standard of backup quarterbacks. Jake Browning played really well. I'm not going to sit up here and say that Jake Browning should be an NFL starting caliber quarterback. I'm not going to overreact to one good game that he played for the Cincinnati Bengals, but he showed that he belonged in the National Football League. But for the people that believe that wide receiver is the most important position when building a team around a quarterback, well, you guys won that argument last night, because when you look at the Cincinnati Bengals, they got Jamar Chase, they got T. Higgins, they got Tyler Boyd. So they got 3 wide receiver ones out there on the football field. I know some Bengals fans, they don't like Tyler Boyd because he drops the ball too much, and I'm not going to act like Tyler Boyd is a good football player anymore, but he's still a capable football player. He still is a guy that can have flashes of good moments here, good moments there. I know that he threw that horrible looking interception yesterday on a trick play, but Tyler Boyd plays efficient here and there. But let's give the credit to Jamar Chase where credit is due, because Jamar Chase was the real MVP of the Cincinnati Bengals last night. Jamar Chase played like the second coming of Randy Moss. The dude was catching everything. 11 catches on 12 targets. He caught a 76-yard touchdown. He had 11 catches, 149 receiving yards, and a receiving touchdown, including the 76-yard touchdown. So he was extremely efficient with what he did, because every time Jake Browning looked to throw the ball to Jamar Chase, he often caught the ball. And by the way, shout out to Jamar Chase for helping me win my fantasy football matchup, because I have Jamar Chase on my fantasy team. So it was nice to see Jamar Chase ball out on Monday Night Football, because I needed all of those points from Jamar Chase, considering the fact that I was down by a lot of points. I ended up winning the fantasy matchup, so I'm pretty fired up about that. But let's talk about real football. Let's not talk about fantasy football. I want to talk about real football. So when you talk about what happened last night, obviously Jamar Chase made Jake Browning look like a better quarterback than he actually is, but that doesn't discount the greatness that Jake Browning displayed on Monday Night Football, because the guy was making good decisions with the football in his hands. He only threw 5 incompletions. I mean, my goodness, this dude looked like the second coming of Kurt Warner. I thought I was watching Kurt Warner play football or something, because of the way that he was dotting up that Jaguars defense. Now, you would think that the Jaguars defense, they're supposed to be a pretty good unit, but they did not play like a good unit on Monday Night Football. And I know that they also lost Trevor Lawrence, their quarterback, due to injury, but that's not an excuse for why the Jacksonville Jaguars lost, because the Jacksonville Jaguars scored 31 points. Anytime an NFL team scores 31 points, that should be enough to win the game at home. But that was not the case, because Jake Browning put up 34 points because he did a great job throwing the football. Like I said, he only threw 5 incompletions. He threw for over 350 yards. He even scored some touchdowns. He had a rushing touchdown. He had a passing touchdown. He also added 22 rushing yards on the ground. He showed some nice his mobility is a lot better than what you would expect out of Jake Browning. You know, when you look at Jake Browning, you think he's not necessarily the fastest guy out there. He doesn't look like a particularly fast quarterback, but when you actually watch the film on Jake Browning, oh, this guy can evade pressure here, he can evade pressure there. Oh, look at that, he made a guy miss. Oh, he's cutting back across the field. I mean, you got this 3rd and 1 play, it's late in the 4th quarter, he runs a play action and he's running this bootleg and he's running it. I'm thinking, okay, just get down, buddy. But then he cuts back like he's Lamar Jackson and he ends up getting a nice 21-yard gain out of it that leads to a field goal for the Cincinnati Bengals. And without Jake Browning last night, the Cincinnati Bengals would not have won that game. It's not like Jake Browning just managed the game. Jake Browning was a game changer. And I'm not saying that Jake Browning is all of a sudden going to be this great football player, but if you guys told me that he could be the second coming of Cooper Rush or the second coming of Nick Foles, okay, I can go ahead and believe that. And if that's true, what an incredible value the Cincinnati Bengals got out of their back quarterback position, because Jake Browning is making peanuts at the quarterback position. He's not making very much. And with the money that Joe Burrow is making for the Cincinnati Bengals, they can't afford to overpay for a quarterback. So they got to roll with Jake Browning at the back quarterback position. So if they found a hidden gem with Jake Browning at the quarterback position, then that's a steal for the Cincinnati Bengals. As far as what the Cincinnati Bengals weren't telling you about Jake Browning, but they didn't tell you that Jake Browning was very accurate and that he can be very poised in the pocket. They didn't tell you that Jake Browning had better mobility than what it looked like on paper. They didn't tell you that Jake Browning is a gamer when the bright lights are on. They didn't tell you a lot of things about Jake Browning. A lot of people, including myself, thought that the Cincinnati Bengals were stupid for going into the season with Jake Browning as their backup quarterback, but Jake Browning has proved his doubters wrong. Jake Browning has proven that he belongs to the National Football League and that he indeed can play in the National Football League. In fact, a lot of people wondered why the Cincinnati Bengals released Trevor Siemian at the end of preseason. Well, I think based on last night's results, the Cincinnati Bengals absolutely did the right thing. Have you guys seen how bad Trevor Siemian has been for the New York Jets? The dude has only played 1 game for the Jets this year, but a lot of people can already tell that he sucks at the quarterback position. When you watch Jake Browning though, a lot of people are saying, okay, this guy could last 10-15 years as a backup. Maybe he can be like Nick Foles, maybe he can be like Cooper Rush, where if he needs to come in for a game, he can go ahead, make it competitive. I don't think he's going to be a full-time star in the National Football League. He doesn't have the arm strength for that, but he has good accuracy, he has good poise, and the guy is a gamer. He knows what to do when pressure is in his face. He doesn't get rattled by pressure easily, and I'm not trying to overreact to that 1 game, but that 1 game made me really impressed with Jake Browning. I think if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, you got to figure out how to keep Jake Browning on the roster next year based off of that performance. I don't even care if he doesn't win another game the rest of the year. The fact that he showed promise in that 1 game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, that to me is enough cause to make me say, yeah, go ahead and keep Jake Browning on the roster. And in fact, if you're the Cincinnati Bengals right now, yeah, your playoff hopes don't look great, but they're not out of the question, because right now you play against the Colts, you play against the Vikings. Those are the next 2 games. They're at home. Those are games that the Bengals should win one way or another. Even though the Colts and the Vikings are both on their back quarterbacks, they are still teams contending for the NFL playoffs. I think that the Bengals can go ahead and win both of those games though, because I don't believe the Colts are going to continue winning with Gardner Minshew at the quarterback position. I know Minshew has been fantastic for them, but I don't expect Minshew to continue balling out the way that he has. So that's a game the Bengals should win with the greatness of Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd, as well as the Bengals defense. I know they didn't show up on Monday Night Football, but we've seen the Bengals defense show up here and there, so I can trust the Bengals to show up for a couple of games. Other than, of course, they play against the Vikings. Who knows who their quarterback is going to be? Kirk Cousins has been lost for the year. Josh Dobbs has been struggling in recent weeks. Nick Mullins has recovered from his injury, so he's off IR, and they got Jaren Hall, so they could go with either one of those quarterbacks. The Vikings right now are a mess in the quarterback room, so that could be a game the Bengals go ahead and steal. So that puts the Bengals at 8-6, which means that they got 3 games left to go, and if they're 8-6, they control their destiny, because they get to play Pittsburgh, they get to play against Kansas City, and they get to play against Cleveland week 18. Obviously, the Bengals are not going to win all those games, but when you're looking at that schedule, you could think, okay, the Bengals, they got a chance to get to 9 wins. The only problem with that, though, is 9 wins might not be enough to make the NFL playoffs in the AFC this season. Now, if the Cincinnati Bengals play in the NFC, then yes, that would be enough, but in the AFC, that's probably not going to be enough, because you're looking at some of the teams in the AFC. You got the Pittsburgh Steelers at 7-5. They're probably going to get in, considering the fact that they have a pretty easy schedule the rest of the season. Then you got the Indianapolis Colts at 7-5. That's obviously going to be a must-win game. The Bengals have to win that game this upcoming Sunday, but I believe they're going to do that because Jake Browning is a quarterback that is playing with confidence, and when you got a backup quarterback playing with confidence, he is playing with house money, and that means good things are going to happen because he's going to continue to play good football. And then you got the Browns at 7-5. They got disarray in the quarterback room. Deshaun Watson's out for the year. You got Dorian Thompson-Robinson in concussion protocol. Joe Flacco's the quarterback right now. You could alternatively turn to PJ Walker, but he's not good either. So obviously, you're looking at how the Colts and Browns, they might not last too much longer in the playoffs. And then, of course, you got the Houston Texans above the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, the Texans got an MVP candidate in CJ Stroud. He has absolutely been incredible for them. Let's see what happens with the Texans. And then you got the Broncos and Bills above the Bengals right now in the NFL playoffs. If the season ended today, obviously the Bengals are going to need a lot of help in order to keep their playoff hopes alive. But if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, you have to feel a lot better today than you did yesterday because of the fact that Jake Brown showed that he could go to Jacksonville and beat them at their place, a team that's considered to be one of the top teams in the AFC. So obviously, if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, like I said, you got to feel pretty good about yourselves. You got to feel good about what you have in Jake Brown. And I think the fan base has gained a lot of confidence in Jake Brown, myself included. I've gained some confidence in him. I'm like, okay, this guy can last in the National Football League. This guy looks like he can actually play. I'm actually genuinely surprised that he looks like an NFL caliber quarterback. But I'm thinking, okay, the guy's accurate, he's poised, I can work with those kind of things. Obviously, Jake Brown's going to need good play calling around him, but if he can get that, then he's got as good of a chance as anybody to win these ball games at the end of the year. So that is why I was very impressed with Jake Browning's performance against the Jaguars on Monday Night Football. Remember, go ahead and subscribe to Sports Guy Talking, like the video, and please comment down below. If you guys do that, I may shout you guys out in my Instagram story every Monday. That'll be for the Dustin Tran Instagram account. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at Dustin Tran and at Sports Guy Talking. Also, go follow me on Twitter at Dustin Tran. Again, go ahead and do those things that I just told you guys to go do. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the content that was just produced. Peace out. I hope you enjoyed that video. Want more Sports Guy Talking, the home of great sports content? Make sure you click that subscribe button to get the latest from Sports Guy Talking. Go ahead and like the video. Comment down below. Check the description box on the video in order to follow my Instagram and Twitter. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from the YouTube channel, Sports Guy Talking.